Magandang umaga, Pilipinas! Good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are around the world. Welcome to today's webinar where we will discuss how to solve gaps in the agri-food system, promoting youth inclusion and innovation. We are streaming to you live through the Circa online learning and virtual engagements or SOLVE platform via Zoom and Facebook Live. My name is Jean Labios, and I am a program specialist of the Training for Development Unit under the Education and Collective Learning Department of Circa. I will be your moderator for this morning's webinar. The short video shown earlier has given you a glimpse about Circa and what we do. Circa is hosted by the Philippine government in the campus of the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. So we are coming to you live from Los Baños, Laguna, the special science and nature city of the Philippines. This SOLVE webinar series is Circa's immediate response to the emerging impacts of the COVID-19 global pandemic on food security. By maximizing the use of information and communication technology platforms to inform, educate, and share evidence-based solutions and tested technologies, as well as best practices on the ground. If you are new to this webinar, this is actually the 34th webinar since it was launched last April 28, 2020. Circa's 11th five-year plan, which was launched in July 2020, identifies gender and youth engagement in ARD, or Agriculture and Rural Development, as one of the priority areas that would accelerate transformation through agricultural innovation. As we put the spotlight on the youth, we have the Circa Young Forces for Agricultural Innovation, or Y4Agri, which is the banner youth engagement initiative of Circa. Guided by the principle of by the youth, for the youth, and with the one's youth, our Y4Agri program aims to nurture young people as partners and leaders for agricultural innovation. Now, we invite you to the launch of the Y4Agri Facebook page as it is flashed on your screen. Please visit and like the page. You can search this in the search bar by keying in Y4 as in number 4 and then Agri. Of course, we want to spice things up a bit this morning with some exciting prizes. We will be giving away Circa merchandise with Circa publications, t-shirt, and a planner to certain likers of the new page. So go ahead and find that Facebook page of Y4Agri with the username Y4Agri, as in Y, letter Y, number 4, and then Agri. Or click the link sent to the Zoom chat box and the FB Live comments section. So again, we'll be giving away prizes to the first likers of the page. So you have to react to the logo or profile picture of Y4Agri, and then we will award Circa merchandise to the 50th and 100th FB users to make a reaction, whether a thumbs up or a heart react. In addition to this, the 75th and 125th to share the logo or the profile picture will also receive Circa merchandise. So that's two things. First, you have to react on the logo and then share it. We will announce the winners by the end of the webinar, so please stay tuned for this. Okay, so today is actually in celebration of the International Youth Day. That's tomorrow, August 12th, which has the theme Transforming Food Systems, Youth Innovation for Human and Planetary Health, to highlight that the success of a global effort will not be achieved without the meaningful participation of young people. For this SOLVE webinar, we will be joined by 3 young leaders who will share their perspectives on the different possible roles of the youth in transforming the agri-food system. But before we proceed to our online conversation this morning, please allow me to quickly go over some statistics gathered from the SOLVE webinar held on 28 July 2021. The infograph shows that 56 of our online viewers were female and the rest were male. It also indicates that more than 100 individuals tuned in via Zoom and almost 150 individuals viewed the webinar through Circa's Facebook page. Lastly, we are happy to note that we've had online attendees not only from the Philippines, but also from Cambodia, Japan, Indonesia, Myanmar, and Taiwan. Let me now go over the program flow, which is currently shown on your screen. After my introduction and a few housekeeping rules, we will have our first speaker, Dr. Wannasiri Wannasupchue, our very own SEARCA Scholar from 2016 and current lecturer at the Food and Service Department, Udon Thani Rajabhat University. Dr. Wannasiri will open our discussion this morning by presenting her key insights on the importance of halal education in the agri-food system. Ms. Louise Emmanuelle Mabulo, UNEP Young Champion of the Earth, follows with her presentation on the Cacao Project, an initiative she founded which aims to boost local economy and livelihood of farmers in Camarines Sur, Philippines. Lastly, but definitely not the least, we have Mr. Leandro Cano, Director for Agritech of 8 Layer Technologies Incorporated and Chair of the Youth Alliance for Zero Hunger. He will be sharing with us some report highlights of the high-level panel of experts UN Committee for World Food Security, which he is a member of. This is focused on promoting youth engagement and employment in agriculture and food systems. I know you're all excited to listen to our speakers, but let me first encourage you to send us your questions about the presentations. How do you do this? For those of you who are tuned in via SEARCA's Facebook page, you may type your questions in the comments section. Kindly indicate your location now and or country of origin. If you are tuned in via Zoom, please post your questions or comments in the Q&A box, which you would find in the menu bar on your screen. Kindly indicate your location and or country of origin as well. Our Solve team will collate, curate, and compile those questions for me, and I will convey them to our speakers. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover as many questions as we can in the time remaining. Please be clear when you're posing a question to a specific presenter or if it is a general question that anybody can respond to. We will do our best to get as many questions as possible during the open forum. Kindly refrain from posting your email address in the comments section. You can provide this information to us upon responding to our evaluation form and e-certificate request. The link will be posted at the end of the webinar. Please note that this webinar will be recorded and will be made available on SEARCA's Facebook and YouTube channel. Today's presentations will be uploaded on SEARCA's website at www.searca.org. The slides shown during the past webinars have already been posted there. If you have issues or are experiencing technical difficulties with the Zoom online platform, please contact us at solve@searca.org. Kindly note that the views and opinions expressed by our speakers are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect those of SEARCA. Moving on to today's discussions, our first speaker this morning is Dr. Wannasiri Wannasupchue. She is a lecturer at the Food and Service Department, Faculty of Technology of the Udon Thani Rajabhat University in Thailand. We are also pleased to share that Dr. Wannasiri is our SEARCA Scholar from 2016 for her PhD in Food Management at the University Putra, Malaysia. In 2019, she bagged the Best Paper Award for her study titled The Readiness Team Development, a Case Study in Thailand Halal Restaurant, during the 3rd Hospital and Tourism Conference in Malacca, Malaysia, organized by University Technology Mara. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Wannasiri.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Miss Jean, for introducing myself. First, I may introduce myself again. I am Wannasiri Wannasupchue. I am lecturer, Food and Service Department, Udon Thani Rajabhat University, Thailand. And today I would say I am very happy to share my knowledge from my research to all of you. The topic that I would like to talk about for today is Halal Certification and food service industry. But before, I would like to start from the general one. First of all, I would like to show you about what is halal food, what is halal certification. Actually, what is the halal food that mean, and halal certification means the hygienic condition in the process of food production, starting from preparation process until serve your food for you. This hygienic condition should combine with the religion, but the important or the key key two words is halal and haram. The meaning of halal is the permission or rule. So that means you can do it. But the meaning of haram is opposite halal. The haram that means you cannot do it following the religions. But however, when the restaurant or the food service outlet, when you want to go for halal certification, each country they have own halal certification body. For example, in Thailand, they have the Central Islamic Council of Thailand to check all of the process, all of the ingredients in your restaurant, in your food outlet before they endorse the halal certification to you. And then your food outlet can show the halal logo in front of your page to show that to communicate with your customer. This is the halal food. This is the halal for Islamic tourism, or maybe not only Islamic tourism. The advantage of halal logo is you can communicate with international Muslim tourists, but non-Muslim also accept the halal food because they believe that all of the process of halal is hygienic and high sanitation. So this logo can represent the hygienic conditions. Next slide, I would like to show you about the, I would say this is the slogan of halal food, from farm to fork. So halal food is not concerned only the dish that you eating, but they concern from farm. From farm, that means what is the agriculture, what is the chicken, what is the cattle that you serve for the customer. From my experiences, I went to Halal exhibition in Malaysia. They surprised me. Why I say that? Because not only the chicken that they produce following halal regulation, but they are concerned from the food for chicken. The food for chicken should be halal. So before this, I did not think about this one. I think only chicken process to serve following the halal. But in the Muslim country, before they put the halal logo, they're concerned from agriculture. So when they are the farmer or the people who want to serve agriculture product to halal industry, they have to concern from the beginning. The beginning is the the beginning is the farm. All of the process until serving the food have to follow or apply the hygienic condition and the religion together. So this one is the concept of halal. Before you serve the food to the customer, have to think about not only food, but in the beginning should be halal too. So the supply chain, all these rules have to halal. This one, I would like to show you some picture. If we looking about halal food, they concern from the how to kill the animal to prepare the food for the customer. For example, this one is a chicken. Chicken is they have the way to, the first one is a slaughter. Slaughter is the key person in the process of food preparing, because the slaughter must Muslim. I use the word smart because in the process of slaughter, before they kill the chicken or the cattle, they have to use the sharp knife, and during the process, they have to say about the Allah name, or I'm not sure about the how to say this sentence in the Muslim, but the slaughter have to say some wording as specific in the process of the slaughter part. And this one is the chicken have to use only the single time, and they have to cut in the main butt, and the animal have to dry only one time. Not only chicken, but also the cattle animal have to same the procedure. So about halal food or halal certification, they concern anything about the process of preparing food. So and then I would like to show you this one. When we talk about halal cannot certify themselves that only they are Muslim, but they have the halal certification to ensure, to confirm they are following halal certification rule. For example, I show you this map because each country they have their own halal certification body. For example, I show you that the purple map. The purple map is in Thailand we call the Central Islamic Committee of Thailand. However, the blue one is in Vietnam. Vietnam they also have halal certification agency, and the green one is in Malaysia. Malaysia they have JAKIM. JAKIM does mean a halal certification body as well in Malaysia. But if you look at the bound area, the bound area is Philippines. From my review, they have two halal certification body. The first one is the National Commission on Halal Filipinos, and the second one, the Islamic Dawah Council of the Philippines. When you saw this one, you will think, oh, every country they have their own halal certification, and how they keep the international standard, because of all of the committee of each country they have to go for meeting to update their halal certification, their standards. Every country have to show the believable. Every country have to show their standard to make sure that every country have the same standard that in international Muslim committee agreement, and then they will believe that each halal certification have the high standard before give the halal logo to all the food products. I would like to show you about the example of halal certificate in Thailand. The example of halal certificate in Thailand have three versions. The first version is in English, the second one in Thai, and the last one in Arabic. So all of these are after the restaurant or the food company, the food factory pass the 6 steps on halal certification process, the Islamic Committee in Thailand will give the certificate to all of the company. But the certificate have the valid only 1 year. So this one may be one of the challenges of getting halal certification in Thailand. 3 versions of certificate can display in front of their company to show their customer they have already certified their quality by using halal certificate. Not only halal certificate, in their product, they can show about halal logo. Okay, you can click next one more time. Okay, this one show you about the halal application. In Thailand, the committee try to make the application to support the tourists. If we don't have any the COVID-19 now, maybe this application would be popular among customer. You can put the destination and the starting point, and then this map will show you about where is the halal restaurant, where is the mosque, where is the hotel. So this one is provide the advantage for the restaurant so much, the food outlet so much. Why? Because this one can show you what is the name of restaurant, what is the menu, and the important thing is in application can show halal status, certified or non-certified, and then This will encourage non-halal certified restaurants to go for halal certification. So the committee tried to develop this application, and I believe that if the COVID go far away from us, the tourism industry in Thailand will become more high income, and the restaurant of the company related tourism will become more high income again. This one I would like to show you. All of the Thailand have 6 regions in my country, but my research is PhD research can run because of SEARCA. I would like to say SEARCA for the financial support. This one one of the results from my research would like to show you about the result on halal certification in the northeastern region. The northeastern region is the yellow part. This is near Laos, but is far away from Muslim country, because Muslim country is near the south of Thailand, near the purple area. So this area is quite big, but when I see this one, they may have the potential to become the popular tourism in my country. So in Thailand can encourage the restaurant in this area to become halal certified, because if they can encourage all of the restaurants to become halal certified, they can promote this area to the new tourism, agro-tourism, or maybe agro-food from this area can export to another country. This one I would like to show you some the restaurant in this area. When I enter this one, I will see the halal logo in front of the restaurant, but is from this one, it's not the Islamic language. It's not halal certified. So I would like to show you that some restaurants, they did not deeply understand what is halal certification, but they understand how to cooking in the halal. But this one, when we go to halal certified restaurant that already certified by the Islamic committee in Thailand, they will show halal certificate and halal logo in front of the restaurant, and the yellow chicken, the yellow light and chicken. This one is a popular menu that's sold by Muslim in Thailand. When I go to the restaurant to interview them, I found 4 challenges of getting halal certification. The first one is a misperception of halal certification. This is one of the challenges of getting halal certification. Why I say that? Because some food outlets in Thailand, Muslim food outlet in Thailand, they think they are Muslim, so that is enough. No need to certify, no need to go for halal certification, because they are Muslim. They cook the halal food to the customer. But the concept of halal certification is not only cooking in the Muslim way, but they mean you have to think about the ingredients. All of the ingredients have to halal certified, not only the restaurant. So this one, when all of the ingredients have to halal certified, agriculture product have to halal too. Not only the food product, not only the food for serving. So that I talk about from farm to fork. All of the concept have to halal. Therefore, the restaurant cannot certify themselves that only they are Muslim. They have to certify their quality by the Islamic committee, because the Islamic committee is not only Islamic committee, but including scientists, the expert on religion. They have to check all of the what is the building, what is the ingredients, what is the restaurant. All of this have to one key to achieve halal certified. The second one, the challenges of getting Halal certification is Islamic community as the authority. Why I say that? All of the respondents mention the same idea that they feel high pressure when they go for Halal certification because they think all the time someone looking at them, looking at their process, looking at how they cooking, looking at how they go to the market, so they feel high pressure. And the third one is a lack of awareness. What is the meaning of awareness? That they have to think Halal certification is not only halal food, but they mean the system. When they have the system, they have to think about the document. They have to have a lot of document to certify their restaurant, to certify where they pick up all the ingredients. Not only go to the market and buy the chicken, but the chicken have to have halal logo. The last one is the challenge of getting halal certification is a complicated process. What's the meaning of complicated process? That I said, halal certification is not the practical, but this one means the documentary. When the restaurant or the food outlet go for halal certification, they have to think about a lot of document. Starting when they apply for halal certification, they have to think about what is the document, what is the evidence to show that the ingredient is halal. They have to prepare a lot of document. So four of these is would be the challenges that I found in the northeastern area. After we talking about the challenges, I would like to show you about the motivation. Some the restaurant that can go for halal certification, they mention 4 motivation of getting halal certification. For example, all of them have the similar idea that they want to show their food have high quality, but the quality cannot just talk, oh, my food is have the quality guarantee, but that means you have to certificate or have to pass the step to become the food quality, to show their quality. So this one is the important thing, the first motivation factor that go for achieve halal certification. And the second one is a customer demand. During I interview halal restaurant, they talk about their experience that before they getting halal certification, when international Muslim tourists enter their restaurant, they don't believe this is the halal food. So the customer would like to talk with the owner, and the owner have to show Arabic language to contact with the customer. So when the owner is not at the restaurant, the customer will go out and don't believe this is halal restaurant. And then when they apply for halal certification, the owner no need to stay at the restaurant, just communicate with the customer by the halal logo, and then they will believe this is, oh, okay, this is halal, it's not based the religions. And the third motivation factor is positive attitude on halal certification. All of the owner must have the positive attitude. Some the restaurant that cannot achieve halal certification because they think halal certification is a busy step, is a complicated step. So they don't want to do any process about getting halal certification. But the halal certified restaurant, most of them have the positive attitude on halal certification. Why I say that? Because all of them mention that when they believe that after getting halal logo, they can sell their food maybe expensive 1% or 2%, but they can sell their food higher than another food, but still accept among customer. It's like customer accept wherever they sell is more expensive, but they have the halal logo. So this one may be the positive side of the halal logo and motivate all of the owner to getting halal certification. And then the last motivation factor that I found from my study is Boston business opportunity, because halal is cannot sell only Muslim, but non-Muslim accept halal logo too, because they believe that it is a high hygienic condition. So, but then opportunity that when the restaurant in Thailand or the food industry, the hotel, the company, when they getting halal logo, the information of the restaurant will appear in the halal official website. So when people that is like me, I come from another country and I would like to see where is the halal restaurant, where is the halal hotel. I can see the information from the official website and it's more believable. I may believe without any question because this information provided by the Islamic Committee of Thailand. So your business may become reputation, and most of the customer will directly to the restaurant or the food outlet without any question. This is the important for motivation factor that encourage or drive halal owner to getting halal certification. The time is so fast, but if you want to know about halal certification in Thailand, you may give the question to SEARCA team. And thank you so much for your attention. I hope all of you stay safe and healthy. I believe that if this time don't have any COVID-19, I may be at the Philippines. And I would like to thank you, SEARCA, for the scholarship to give me. And the last of all, I love Dai Mango in Philippines so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri, for sharing with us details about the halal food industry, especially in ensuring that the entire process from farm to fork follows the religious and hygienic considerations of the Muslim community. This is most definitely important in promoting an inclusive agri-food system by thinking about our Muslim brothers and sisters. We are pleased to share that among our SEARCA scholars, we have an increasing interest in studying halal certification. Dr. Wannasiri, we look forward to discussing with you later during the open forum prospects for our youth in the halal food industry. Okay, so for our next speaker, we have Ms. Louise Emmanuelle Mabulo. She is a chef, farmer, and entrepreneur. She is the founder of the Cacao Project, which cultivates resilient and climate-smart livelihoods, positioning farmers for sustainable access in San Fernando, Camarines Sur, Philippines. Louise has received numerous awards for her work. She is a Young Champion of the Earth under the United Nations Environment Program, a National Geographic Young Explorer, and is in Forbes Asia's list of 30 under 30, among others. She has also hosted pop-up dinners that source local ingredients and highlight locally produced components of her menus. She was the host to the cooking show Simply Sarap, aimed at promoting cultural diplomacy under the Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs. Louise strives towards empowering farmers and advancing climate action and environmental stewardship through her work. Louise, the screen is yours.
Thank you so much, Jean, for the kind introduction. And thank you as well to SEARCA, Thani as well, for inviting me here today. This webinar was organized weeks ago, and I appreciate, as always, the amazing professionalism and wonderful platforms from you and your team. So once again, thank you for the introduction. And I'd also like to reintroduce myself. So as you know, my name is Louise Mabulo. I'm a chef, farmer, and entrepreneur. I'm the founder of the Cacao Project, which cultivate sustainable and resilient livelihoods for farmers here in my hometown. And I'm also a National Geographic Young Explorer, UN Environment Young Champion of the Earth, and Forbes Under 30 honoree. Now, to quickly share my screen, I was invited today to speak in particular on the industry perspective of youth in agriculture and how young people like us can help build better support systems for farming communities throughout a variety of means. Now, for some background, in December of 2016, my hometown was hit by Super Typhoon Not 10, and that destroyed over 80% of agricultural land in my town alone. Now, this meant that for years and months to come, a lot of our farmers would struggle to build their income. And it was a wake-up call that our agricultural communities are vulnerable to climate disasters, to climate change, and even our peace and security is. In fact, in the aftermath, I had built the Cacao Project, which really supports farmers with training and resources and input they need to diversify and strengthen their livelihoods, and also build climate adaptability in our changing world and enable them to become stewards to the environment too. Now, despite being an agricultural country where a large part of our economy is based on farmers and on farming, there was the issue that Filipino farmers are still considered a marginalized group and that they remain to be an extremely vulnerable sector. Now, to give a little background of why this is important, the average age of farmers in the Philippines is at about 57 years old. I believe the slide is here somewhere. Here we are. It's 57 years old. And with an aging population of farmers and a dwindling youth interest in agriculture, this could mean we could experience a food insecurity crisis in as little as 15 years. And on top of that, our world is predicted to require about 70% more food by 2050. And conversely, because of global soil degradation, we're also set to lose harvests and be unable to make sufficient produce in as little as 60 years, according to the FAO. Now, to top that off, the Philippines is one of the most vulnerable countries to hazards brought about by climate change, according to the Global Peace Index. So, kaya naman pala wala masyadong gustong pumasok sa agri. In short, the combination of these problems are the triple planetary crises. And these factors, combined with cultural stigmas against farmers, means young people no longer aspire to be a farmer, even though their interventions are greatly needed to save this industry. So not to mention food systems contribute to a third of global greenhouse gas emissions. And so much of these issues are also blamed on the agricultural community, which aggravate the stigmas associated to farming in rural areas. And the cycle goes on. So in this presentation, I want to just deep dive into the reasons behind it and what solutions that we can make. So how do we find solutions to these issues? So first, we need to rethink our approach to agricultural systems. Now, agriculture has either been thought of in mass-scale commercial conditions or in smallholder farms that produce very little or only can produce so much. So think of it this way. Our traditional approach to farming needs an overhaul. Instead of the need for industrial mass-scale monocropping agriculture point of view, we need more holistic approaches that bring back traditional and restorative practices and combine that with studies from institutions like SEARCA and from UPLB and other agricultural institutions around the world. And for a long time, the existing practices surrounding agriculture have been driven by demand, by corporations, and even historically by colonialism and imperialism. Now we're realizing that these systems had been so normalized that we'd forgotten that once upon a time, farming was just farming and food was just food. And our ancestors have their traditional farming practices, which were much more sustainable after all. And that scientists are right. The way we produce food is unsustainable, and we need to grow food in a different way because it's currently problematic. With the Cacao Project, we're enacting that already, building grassroots communities to build regenerative agroforests on their own through their skills and training and proper land management. So we see that farmers can save money if they created their own organic fertilizers, pesticides, and foliar sprays instead of purchasing chemical equivalents. And we also see that if we take care of our forest cover, our soil and its biodiversity, 10, 20 years down the line, we could even have more fruitful harvests instead of suffering from soil acidification. Now, the background of this slide is actually an aerial shot of our model farm, which we're currently using to help show best practices in the agricultural sector. Now, all of this benefits farmers, but we just need a just transition, a slow and easy transition that makes it accessible and easy for people to understand. So if agriculture is to be attractive, it can't be the same agriculture that we've seen in previous generations. So that leads me to my second point. we need to disassemble cultural stigmas surrounding agriculture. So it was a previous event that was also organized by Thani that I realized just how deeply rooted cultural stigmas are that surround farming. So in schools, if you're struggling or failing, people will say, kung hindi ka mag-aral na mabuti, pupulutin ka sa hangkungan, or mangangamote ka, which is another way to say that if you don't do well, it's always associated to agriculture, farming, and it's associated to failure, which is quite problematic for our youth. So in our culture, agriculture is perpetuated to be associated to failure, poverty, and the stereotype of this image of farmers is problematic. So I probably say I'm a farmer, and people will immediately judge me because I don't look like a farmer. I'm a young woman. I like wearing makeup and everything. And that shows you that people have this templated image of what a farmer should look like. And these are called predetermined stigmas. So that shows us that people have this idea of farming that needs to slightly change because people have this misconception of what farmers should look like distinctly. And in fact, consumers as well now are so disconnected from our producers that quite a number of people don't realize how their food gets to the tables or who the people are that contribute to that process. So for young people to get into agriculture, we have to recognize these stigmas, that they exist, and we need to change them. So that starts as early as in schools. In 2019, Mam Ched, who is a professor at UPLB Department of Education, had come to my town and wrote our story into a children's book to create positive images in minds of children about the value of farming, and to make books like these that are accessible to all. It's available in Tagalog, English, and in Bicolano, so young children could learn and understand and positively reinforce our culture and our farms for them. So you see, agriculture is not limited to farming or toiling out in the field. So I showed this little booklet that they've released because it shows you that we need designers to help support farmers and package their produce or create stories. We need marketers who will advertise our local produce. We need people in finance that will help build systems that make funding for agriculture more accessible, and even educate farmers on how to handle their finances and loans. And we need artists, writers, logistic operators. There's a whole world and system that young people can contribute to in building a just and equitable food system for our country. It's not just the stereotype of being out in the field. Yes, that's included in the process, but there's a whole scheme of systems and mechanisms as part of our food system that young people can contribute to make a difference. And young people are a key to achieving a grain recovery for our economy. Lastly, I've mentioned this throughout my talk already, but I do believe that young people can spearhead both a cultural and food systems revolution for our country, for our economy, and even for our planet. And only through intergenerational collaboration can we properly accomplish this. Now, developing countries like ours, across ASEAN especially, are uniquely positioned to bridge sustainable farming into the modern world. We've had heirloom techniques and knowledge preserved from our elders on natural interventions and science for food production. Like I recall here in my community that I would just talk to the farmers and learn from a lot of our elders about, techniques they had, for example, making chili pesticides or, whistling for wind, which has, I don't know what the scientific reason behind it is, but it's amazing that, those traditions are still passed down and for some reason they work. Or even just looking at the sky and predicting what the weather is. It's those basic traditions that youth need to be torchbearers of. So it's up to young people to be torchbearers and understand that knowledge and carry it into the modern age and integrate that with technology or research that's essential to help us. Our systems for agriculture are not yet at the same irreversible scales we see in the global north, where swaths of land have been degraded because of industrial or mass scale monocropping. We have small scale farmers, and we have a lot of people here at the grassroots who are uniquely positioned to actually be pioneers of a combination of traditional and regenerative farming. But we also have the opportunity to spearhead a more equitable system. For us, it's not too late, especially while we sit at this critical juncture in time that highlights the intersectionalities of our food systems, including agriculture, our environment, our climate. As Dr. Wannasiri said earlier, it also intersects with religion. It also intersects with biodiversity, and most especially to the quality of human life. So before I go, I wanted to share a little bit about what inspired me into going into agriculture and trekking this journey. And I know it's odd to see a young girl like me talking to you about businesses and economies and environment, and most especially farming. But something that really triggered that for me was being influenced by biblical history. Now, I don't know, I'm not here to preach, and I don't know what you believe in, but I think in history, if you look at the Bible and pay attention to it, you'll notice that biblically all the richest and most successful men were farmers. So King David was a shepherd, Boaz was a grain farmer, Job was a farmer, Joseph the Dreamer was a farmer and went on to sanction farming policies in Egypt. And because in the Bible, successful farming is a direct indicator of God's blessings and favor on a nation and people. And farming at the time was seen as community development in a way. It was a gauge to the quality of life and how we're able to help others. So if we only dared to act and break through the barriers that we've set or we're currently facing, we can be prime stewards to God's creation and unlock his blessings for us through our food systems and our agricultural industry. And imagine that economic advice was being given to us from a biblical book that's over 2,000 years old. And even in 2021, a lot of those lessons hold true. So it says in the Bible that the Lord will open the heavens and the storehouse of his bounty to send rain on your land in season and to bless the work of your hands. And you will lend to many nations, but you will borrow from none. And I accept this promise, not just for me, but as a hope for all of us, that we can open the doors to a new era of self-sufficiency through agriculture and entrepreneurship and integrating with social community aspects into our thinking, which allows us to accept God's blessings on our land and also helps us restore the creation that we've been tasked to take care of. So I don't know about you, but I want to succeed and serve my purpose in this world, knowing that my existence is no accident and that actions today will have an echo and go on to create value for people beyond ourselves. Even if it's in our food, our breakfast, lunches, and dinners, or who we buy our groceries from. And together, I do believe that we can achieve that for our country. So with that I say, dare to feed the future, dare to invest in local, and dare to cultivate change. Thank you so much. And I'll hand the floor back to you, Jean.
Okay, thank you, Louise, for sharing with us your personal experience and how the youth can help support our farmers. We know that through your initiatives such as the Cacao Project, you are helping break the stigma that farming and farmers cannot escape poverty. I believe this is where the challenge for us, the youth, comes in, so we can correct misconceptions in agriculture and become agents in promoting the agri-food system. Yes, indeed, you mentioned that agriculture is not just about farming. In Circa, we have been promoting that engaging in the food system does not necessarily only fall on agriculture and farming. We try to emphasize that there is an entire agri-food system value chain from production to consumption, whereby a multitude of roles may be taken on. By presenting a diverse and multidisciplinary approach, we encourage the youth to discover their own niche and link these to the agri-food system. So thank you, Louise, for presenting a practitioner's perspective. Again, may I remind our online attendees watching the webinar via Facebook Live, please start typing your questions in the comment section, including your location or country of origin. If you are tuned in via Zoom, please post your questions in the Q&A box, which you will find in the menu bar on your screen. Kindly refrain from posting your email addresses in the comment section. You can provide the information to us, upon responding to our evaluation form and e-certificate request. The link will be posted at the end of the webinar. So while we are waiting for the next presentation to be shared on the screen, please allow me to tell you more about our final speaker. Mr. Jim Leandro Cano is presently the Director for Agritech at 8 Layer Technologies Incorporated. He also chairs the Youth Alliance for Zero Hunger and serves as a member of the Steering Committee of Young Professionals for Agricultural Development, or YPART. At the Science Policy Intersection, Jim is one of the authors of the 16th High-Level Panel of Experts, or HLPE, of the UN Committee on World Food Security, which is working on the youth report titled Promoting Youth Engagement and Employment in Agriculture and Food Systems. He is also engaged in several enterprises, where he founded 360PH Virtual Tours Philippines. He sits as VP for Operations at Dream Agritech Consultancy Services and Assistant Marketing Officer at Go Eden PH, which is an agri-inputs e-commerce platform. Without further ado, let us all welcome Jim.
Thank you, Jean. First of all, thank you to Circa for this event, and it's really important that we focus it. It's nice to, of course, align it with the International Youth Day, but really looking at how to connect it also with the previous speakers' excellent discussions on the ground. I will now shift it more to a more policy environment approach, wherein all these grassroots level approaches and industry practices of young people on the ground needs an environment in which all of these are supported under. And so that's where I would really focus my presentation on. And let me just share my screen. So going through that, the UN Committee on World Food Security requested the high-level panel of experts back in 2019 to create a report and look around at the evidence around the world on how youth are being engaged and employed in agriculture and food systems. And this was in 2019. And so the team was put together last year, and we're a group of 7, and you'll see the picture later. But of course, I just wanted to show how young people are not siloed into one specific industry only. The very fact that I engaged myself in advocacy, in business, and also in advocacy work, in policy advocacy, and also even back then did academe and research time as well in the university, really shows how pluriactive, how plurimobile young people are. Going through that, then the discussion that I'll be pointing us towards is looking at how young people are agents of change across the food systems. What are the dynamics of youth engagement and employment in food systems? And how do we look at young people through different lenses, right? In terms of the challenges, their needs, and also what they require. And then I finish off with some policy recommendations on how we can take that up, bring it to a regional scale, like in the Southeast Asia, and also at the national level here in the Philippines. Well, so first of all, I have to give credit where credit is due. The report, the full report of the HLP can be accessed on the FAO website, but we had a very dynamic and very intelligent team, really, with diverse experiences and beliefs, and it was really nice to work with them. And so the composition of that group really led to the diversity of flavor and also the rich discussions in the HLPE report, which you can access. The link will be seen in the last slide. So just to set the context, right? I think the previous speakers, even Louise alluded already to the challenges that young people face in agriculture, and some of these other facts also are that youth employment it's 3 times higher than adults. Young people without experience, without just finishing, just graduating recently, imagine if you're a young person, you're looking out for a job, and then the job requirements you see is 2 years experience plus academic requirements, right? And so you find yourself, a young person would find him or herself in that position of really looking at which one's the right job for me, right? So unemployment is there. Food systems jobs are one of the most vulnerable types of jobs, given that they're threatened by climatic shocks, right? If typhoons take place, especially in the context of the Philippines, where you have 20 to 22 typhoons on the yearly basis, that affects a lot of jobs. Not to mention what COVID-19 has showed and highlighted, how many have been displaced and have been unemployed due to the pandemic. And so economic shocks, climatic shocks, health system related shocks affect food systems jobs. 1/3 of the global population affected by at least one form of malnutrition, right? And the triple burden of malnutrition is that, hits young people the most, because the access to food is also quite challenging for young people. Food and agricultural systems are a significant driver of climate change, right? And so, like what Louise was alluding to in terms of how the planetary health crisis is also very much linked to the food and agricultural systems, we see that what we practice on the fields and even in larger scales have a direct impact or even outcomes that affect the climate. And so it really drives a lot of the processes that take place with the climate change. Significant inequities in access to resources and sustainable livelihoods across regions, gender, ethnicity, and class is felt everywhere, especially in the global South. and even more with young people, and furthermore, young women. And that is supported by data and research already. Just to give a quick look at how, we assessed youth as agents of change. And you'll see here that across the food supply chains, you'd see how young people are engaged, are involved. And you would see here that, young people could be on-account workers or, entrepreneurs, wage workers, family labor, be part of a family farm. They could either be a volunteer or intern as well. We have friends who do a lot of volunteer work, helping out with farmers and farmers organizations, and many more. Young people can be extension agents, parents, caregivers, cottage entrepreneurs, waiter, cooks, all across the food supply chain, from farm and primary production to retail and marketing, even to consumption, right? So from farm to fork, the same concept and spectrum that Dr. Wannasiri mentioned about a while ago. And so you see that young people are spread out across the food supply chains and the food systems, and they are not only recipients and people that are affected by change, but they also drive the change within each step of the supply chain. And so having that context, having that perspectives, gives us an understanding that young people are not only recipients of developmental programs, but they are also drivers of developmental change. Now, we wanted to be as comprehensive as possible in how we wanted to assess young people. And if you look at this diagram, this really looks at how we approached the report in terms of assessing the dynamics of youth engagement and employment in food systems. As you would see, and I bring your attention to the bottom part of the diagram, the picture of the 4 pillars, which is agency, equity, rights, and recognition. These 4 are very crucial and fundamental pillars for young people to be engaged and employed in agriculture and food systems. With those 4 pillars, we actually set the stage and set the tone for employment, for resources, knowledge, and innovation in which young people can access. And if you see that spiral, you're wondering, why is there a spiral? The discussion around that spiral with young people really is that when we talk about youth, it is very, very fluid and flexible when you're talking about different countries and different contexts, right? With the United Nations definition, childhood is ages 0 to 17. Youth is 15 to 24. But when you go to Mexico, for example, youth begins at 12. If you go to Bolivia, youth begins at 18. In the UK, youth ends at 19 years old. In Tanzania, youth ends at 35 years old. In Malaysia, youth ends at 40 years old. And so looking at how dynamic and fluid the definition of youth is, we see that this spiral, this life course of young people, how different contexts define what youth are. Say for example, if a young person gets married, sometimes in other countries or cultures, they're not considered as youth anymore, right? And so these types of contexts define what these specific individuals can access. And so through that life course, we see that the different structures and processes that we look into are intergenerational relations, aspirations, intersectionality, context specificity, diversity, learning, adaptive technology, mobility, right? All of these are factors that affect what define youth, what youth can access, and how they can affect change into the sustainable food systems. Mobility, just simply, how a young person could grow up in a countryside, in a rural setting, and eventually migrate and move to the urban space for jobs, for opportunities, and eventually retiring, going back to the rural space. Either way, it also works, vice versa, rural, urban, urban, rural migration, right? And so young people are in that kind of continuously dynamic process of finding themselves, finding how they can affect change, finding how they can be part of the picture that they belong to. And so these are the different aspects and factors that we've looked into, which hopefully we or at least we, not hopefully, rather, we see as things that drive the outcomes that we aspire for in the sustainable development goals, which are economies of well-being, simply defined as dignified livelihoods, healthy environments, and food sovereignty being there. I go now and highlight the 4 fundamental pillars, right? We talked about agency. We mentioned agency, equity, rights, and recognition. With agency, we have to see that young people are powerful social, political, economic forces in shifting towards sustainable food systems. With young people's choices to say, we're going to eat a specific type of food simply because they were, they saw an information probably through an ad in the media space or channel that could direct and have repercussions down the line through the food systems, food supply chains. In terms of equity, we see that redistributive measures are needed to overcome persistent and increasing inequalities within and between societies. And this is really looking at how young people have equal access to the resources needed for them to grow and thrive in food systems. In terms of rights, we say that youth are both rights holders to protection, to non-discrimination, and to participation, as well as bearers of responsibility, right? They have the right to protection. They have the right to safe working conditions in farms and in food processing, in retail markets and all that. And they also have the responsibility. In terms of recognition, we see that youth agency, rights and voice, and diverse intersectional context-specific aspirations must be accorded space in policy generation and implementation, right? For institutions to recognize youth agency, equity, and rights is fundamental to how we can set the stage for young people to shape the future today. And I would be remiss if I'm not to highlight and also give credit to Circa for putting together the Y for Agri initiative, which is a joy to see now blooming, because this was part of informal discussions that I've had with Thani and Dr. Labios and Dr. Gregorio in the past, and to see that coming to fruition is one of these fruits of recognition of young people in these spaces. I go now to youth aspirations. We talked a whole length in the report about youth aspirations, but really highlighting that there are a lot of factors that affect youth aspirations. If you think about how you were as a young person, right? When your family and friends would ask you back then when you were still a kid, what do you want to be when you grow up? There are a lot of things that affect that specific answer, whether it's your exposure to your own family, or whether it's what you see on the media, whether what information you see, or it's simply economic factors such as, I want to be this because people like this earn this much, or I want to be this in terms of social status because there is certain types of certain level of influence if I reach this kind of status in society. And everything else comes together, right? Geographic factors, cultural, economic, social, gender, political, education, media, class, the migration, and even mobility. All these affect what young people aspire to do in food systems. Now, we highlight that policies and interventions are very much required to create opportunities for young people to have better opportunities and jobs, and also to increase youth employment. We highlight rather that enhancing skills and employability alone does not solve the issue of insufficient demand for youth's network. So many times when we go and talk to developmental organizations, the default program is always capacity building, training programs. And the same mindset is, if you look at it, the agriculture and food systems, the mindset has always been, if we produce this much, if we increase the yield, we get higher incomes. Such is not the case, as we've seen, right? COVID-19 has proven that theory very wrong, because we've had a lot of supply, but then when COVID-19 cut off the choke points in logistics, everything just crumbled. And so we have to work at a market-driven, demand-driven approach in terms of increasing youth employment, increasing the demand for certain type of skills, and then matching what type of skills and capacities we build amongst young people so that it matches the demand today and the demand of the future. A simple example is, how do we build data science skills and coding programs into young people for them to be ready in the agriculture 4.0 trend, right? That is only one example. Going to sustainable aspects, how do we build the capacity of young people so that they are ready for regenerative agriculture models such as agroecology, community-based or community-supported agriculture models, all of these things, right? And so there has to be a matching of the demand for types of jobs and also the type of skills that we develop among young people. Now, I go through the necessary resources for sustainable food systems, livelihoods, and these are simply access to natural resources, right? Land, water, fish stocks, and even traditional knowledge, knowledge and extension, being able to access indigenous knowledge, traditional knowledge, and innovation. You know, the project team had several meetings just on the topic of innovation, just to agree on how do we define innovation, because there's always this misconception that innovation always has to be something new. When in fact, we got into a consensus that innovation is the assemblage of old and new approaches. And so you could take an old knowledge and simply put it into a new context and tweak it, and that could be innovation. It doesn't have to be artificial intelligence right away. It doesn't have to be augmented reality, big data, cybersecurity, whatsoever. It could be something that has been there but has never been practiced in a different context before. We look at supportive markets, innovative models of resource sharing, and even credit and innovative financing, such as the programs that the DA provides right now for young people, where, you know, zero collateral, no collateral needed for a loan, zero interest for 5 years. These are creative and innovative financing models, which I, as a young person after graduating, could not find back then. And so these are things that really help build the environment for young people to be engaged and employed in agriculture and food systems. Now, the policy recommendations that we look into were: one, provide an enabling environment for youth as agents of change. We have to recognize the rights to food, safe working conditions, and accountability mechanisms. We have to guarantee active participation of youth in formal governance mechanisms. The fact that I chair the Youth Alliance for Zero Hunger, we work closely with the Rome-based agencies, working towards how youth voices can be heard formally in plenary sessions, for us to be able to say, these are the asks of young people. These are what young people are asking for. Support for these kinds of models, financing, access to markets, all these, and that we want to be heard in these formal discussions. The policy instruments and regulations are crucial. Infrastructure and social protection is needed. When we talk about safety nets to reduce vulnerability, we're actually talking about how, in the case of COVID-19, how do we protect young people who've been unemployed because of the pandemic? How do we protect their welfare, their well-being? Second, securing dignified and rewarding livelihoods. We look at pushing for the need for labor market policies, employment legislation, governance, incentives, and social finance. And increasing equity and rights to resources is also crucial. The access to natural productive resources, rights and land tenure security, access to finance, which are affordable, flexible, and inclusive, social impact investment for youth-led enterprises, and also access to markets. Lastly, the last two, enhancing knowledge, education, and skills is very crucial. And I know in Southeast Asia, I know Thailand is also very strong in Tibet types of education. training and vocational programs like what we offer in TESDA, food systems thinking in primary, secondary education, intergenerational mentorship. And I emphasize intergenerational mentorship. In agriculture, there has always been this gap of like different generations doing their own thing. And I feel like that is something that we need to break. That is a mold that we need to break, where young people and the older generation, the once young and the young ones, really need to work together. You know, the wisdom of the once young and the creative passion and the enthusiasm of the young ones really blending to address developmental issues in food systems. And we look at sustainable innovations such as agroecology, and also young people to be employed and also have the capacity to increase resilience of agri-farm food systems. Lastly, fostering sustainable innovation. When we talk about sustainable innovation, again, going back to the assemblages of old and new approaches and practices, looking at social innovation, intergenerational and indigenous knowledge, youth-sensitive and youth-specific rural advisory extension services, develop skills and capacities of young workers. And I highlight this. We need to invest in digital infrastructure and complementary non-digital infra. What do I mean? We're having this webinar right now on a digital platform, but how many young people are not able to access this webinar simply because they don't have the internet connectivity? When we talk about digital infrastructure, we talk about the digital divide that exacerbates pre-existing inequalities that young people may have had even before the pandemic. And because the pandemic has pushed the need for the world to go digital and online large scale, we need to look at how we can work together, public, private, and civil society, how we can implement and roll out digital infrastructure so that young people can be connected, and even the farming communities can be connected. So how do some of our initiatives look like? These are some of the initiatives that I work closely with, especially now in the context of the UN Food System Summit, of which I know Dr. Gregorio has been recognized as a UN Food Systems champion. Act for Food, Act for Change is a group, or is a campaign that is supported and facilitated by the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition and the UK Food Foundation, and I serve as a core leader there as well. We're looking at campaigning for 17 asks of young people, of which you can pledge for and commit to. And you can go to actionsforchange.org or actionsforfood.org. Table Talks is an initiative by Kitchen Connection UN Kitchen Connection. World Food Forum is a platform that has been organized by the FAO Youth Committee. Why Unite is a monthly discussion platform that we've organized with the Youth Alliance in partnership with a Greek organization, Future Agro Challenge, and also a Dutch organization called i4Nature. And Good Food for All is an initiative that supports the UN Food System Summit with Paul Newman. And all of these are different platforms, and we want to ensure, that all these would be recognized, where young people can be heard, and that we don't want to be, the term among young people are youth washing, right? Having an event where you just put young people and say, okay, we're very youth sensitive already, simply because we had 2 young speakers, right? It has to be youth sensitive. It has to be youth specific. It has to be with youth, by youth, for youth, right? And so all of these need to work together. I end with this statements that the future belongs to the youth, as Nelson Mandela said. But I add on further that, but we need to create the necessary enabling environment today where they can grow, thrive, and be part of decision-making processes that affect their future. With that, thank you. And thank you again to Circa for the opportunity to share. You can go to the HLPA report through this link. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jim, for giving us an overview of what the HLPE report is covering. I particularly noted that you highlighted the youth is not only a recipient of development initiatives, but that in fact we are capable of being drivers of change, and we should use that to our advantage. I also note the pillars for youth engagement in food systems, There's agency, equity, rights, and recognition. Thank you for highlighting the aspect of employability and accessibility, and for touching on going digital for agriculture. This is a big part of promoting active participation of the youth in agriculture. And all the more we should push for enabling environments for us, the youth, to become agents of change. Again, as announced earlier, we have launched the Facebook page of Circa's Y4 Agri, which is our banner youth initiative. We are giving away some Circa merchandise, so please like and share the Y4 Agri profile picture, and flashed on your screen is the mechanics. Okay, so once you have liked the Y4 Agri page, react to the logo or profile picture of Y4 Agri, and we will award Circa merchandise to the 50th and 100th Facebook user to make a reaction, whether a thumbs up or a heart react. After that, the 75th and 125th to share the logo or the profile picture will also receive Circa merchandise. So we will announce the winner by the end of our webinar, so please stay tuned for that. Okay, so we will now move on to the open forum. The first question that I have is for Dr. Wannasiri. Based on your presentation, the Halal certification is indeed a rigorous process. Despite the rigorous process, how do halal certification agencies address issues of scam or fake certification?
Yes, how about the fake halal certification? If the committee have the complaint from the customer, they will go and check. For example, some the restaurant or food company, they did not the fake halal, but they show halal logo without renew. Halal certification renewal, so they will withdraw and make the raw. They have some the raw to punish about the owner. Maybe you have to pay the fine. For example, $5 or so on. I'm not sure about the real punishment to punish about the halal fake logo, but if they know, they will go to your company and go with the police or something like that. You have to pay about the fee for that you use the halal fake logo. But about the restaurant, they will withdraw about the halal logo immediately if you did not renew, but you still show the halal logo.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. We have a next question here for you from Dr. Mint Tuzar from Yezin Agricultural University. Thank you very much to all three speakers for sharing their knowledge this morning. Is there any difference in terms of price with or without halal certification? How much is this? And thank you.
In terms of about the food, they don't have exactly about the price, but the restaurant or the food outlet can sell more expensive, more than 5%, 10% because of halal logo. But if they don't have any halal logo, they have to sell their food the same price with the normal.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. Our next question is for Louise. Thank you for that inspiring talk. Is there a template for how we can replicate the program mentioned so we can make use of our land likewise?
So at the moment, I don't have a template of how the Cacao Project works. It's publicly available, but it's definitely, I'm very transparent about how I run my venture. And there's several articles online of specifically how I got to this phase and how the venture runs and works. It's easy to actually replicate it in your own way or in different scales, whether it's for your farmers association, for your LGU, or for your whole region.
Okay, thank you, Louise. Our next question is for Jim. What are the advantages of partnering with institutions like how you are currently connected? We noticed that you are active in various organizations. So how can we encourage the youth, or how can the youth also engage with them or similar institutions so they too can maximize their participation in agriculture?
Thanks, Jean. I think it has to start off with what the specific aspiration of a young person is, right? Sometimes a young person may be very much involved or very inclined towards the climate change crisis, how to address that. And so you normally would align yourself with organizations that focus much on that. In the same manner, like what we do with the Youth Alliance with YPARD, we're focused more on the practices and also how that can be brought to the policy level. And so looking at these, how do you say this, different channels, really aligning your aspirations with that, with those organizations, and looking at how you can be heard would be one way to be heard, of course. And from the side of the institutions, there has to be a deliberate intention to reach out to young people as well, not just, for institutions to wait for young people to line up outside of their offices, but really to go out and say that, we want to hear what young people are doing. And I allude to, or at least I want to cite the Rural Youth Action Plan of Ifad, the International Fund for Agricultural Development of the UN, where they deliberately had or developed a Rural Youth Action Plan, which was approved by the Ifad Governing Council back in 2019. And in a way, that made a formal mechanism that in all country strategic programs that Ifad has across the globe, 50% by 2022 would have formal recognition or formal mechanisms in which young people that they work with in their developmental programs could be heard up to the global level. So I think it's those cases that we need to see how we can replicate and tweak towards our different contexts so that young people can be heard. And so that has to be a bridge between young people looking for the organizations where they could align themselves to based on their aspirations, and institutions going out of their way and going the extra mile to reach young people so that they can be heard.
All right, thank you, Jim. My next question is from Ellie from Batangas. Good morning, I am 25 years old and have no idea on farming, but this pandemic made me realize the importance of planting vegetables. So I don't know how to start farming. Can you give some advice? I believe this goes to Louise. And maybe Jim too. I know Jim has some sort of experience on this. Louise first.
Oh, definitely. Thank you so much for that question. I think in terms of starting farming, there's a lot of resources now online, or whether from universities, even from SEARCA's website, that will allow you to learn about the basics of farming, or just really basic resources that can help you speed you forward. For me, when I was a chef and I was just getting into growing my own food for personal consumption, I just started at it. I just planted seeds and threw them in the soil, and we have very rich soil and a very good climate, and it started growing. And after a while, I realized, oh, here's a mistake that I made. Here's how I can fix it. So trial and error and actually doing it in person and having those experiences can actually really help you out. It's just a matter of going out there and doing it. And of course, now we have a very accessible world. So there's even books and resources, if you can't go online, that can help you with some basic tenets of growing your own garden or starting your own farm. You can do it in your backyard, in a plant pot. There's urban farming. There's so many different ways that you can begin. It's just a matter of, first of all, learning and educating. And second of all, actually just doing it. And, it's okay to make a mistake. It's trial and error. It's just a matter of actually doing it and pivoting as you go along and figuring out how, what methods are effective for you, what methods aren't, or what your climate is in your area. And just go out there and do it, especially if it's just for example, your personal consumption. I think there's not much to lose in that case.
All right, thank you, Louise. Jim, some insights?
Yeah, well, for me and from my experience, I tried mushroom farming. It took me about, well, of course, because it was part of my job to kind of do some research in how to grow mushrooms from rice straw back then. And then, doing that part of my job in researching and understanding mushroom farming really led me to try it out. And so I tried one cropping of mushroom farming just in the backyard. And I realized, a lot of things like what Louise saying, it's a trial and error thing. And, it doesn't guarantee you that because you finished a course in agriculture that you're going to get it all right away in the first try, but it's a learning process. And so in that approach, in that cropping period, I learned that 15 square meters is not enough for economies of scale, right? So you have to have a bigger space to grow mushrooms to go beyond break-even point and all that. But again, it's going through it by just doing it, really. And I also want to go further that, if you want to be engaged in agriculture and food systems, it doesn't necessarily have to be farming only. If you saw the slide a while ago, young people are spread out across food supply chains. You can be in processing, you could be in value adding processes, you could be in retailing and even in the markets. And so you just have to find that niche where your resources and your skill set and your aspirations line up with what you want to do across the food system. So don't limit yourself to farming only. You could look at, you might have connections to farmers, and you can say, I'll help you market your products. I'll help you add value to your product, so then you can have a better margin in terms of profit. And then I can help you, you gain recognition for the work that you do in your farm. So, those kinds of models would also be interesting to for you to experiment with.
Okay, so my take from Louise and Jim is that, one, you just go and do it, but also take advantage of networks. So this is something that we already touched on earlier when we asked Jim how he does it with his network. But I want to talk about accessibility. So at least for Louise, with your background and education, how are you able to pursue your passion in agriculture? Can you share this with our audience, especially since a lot are in a position where they feel like they don't have the capacity or the accessibility to do or start initiatives like what you did with the Cacao Project?
Oh, that's right. I mean, for me, I do come from, I did have a platform prior to getting into agriculture, which was in culinary. Prior to this, I was a chef. And that was what kind of made me realize that, our food is beyond cooking. It goes to our farms, our environment, our air, and our water. And that was kind of how I slowly went from being a chef, going into farm to table food, and then getting into agriculture. And I started this off as a small typhoon relief initiative. It was just fundraising and asking people, oh, could you please, in aftermath of Typhoon Natan, oh, could you please donate seeds and help us grow crops that are quite short term that farmers can actually make an income from and, like diversify their income and save money and put food on the table in the aftermath of these storms. And then slowly I realized this is a kind of a band-aid solution. We need to actually help them diversify in the long term and build resiliency from these typhoons, which happen year after year after year, and help improve their capacity to actually market these and be more entrepreneurial about how they manage their business, their farms, which is in essence a business. So that was kind of how it began. And it was, for me, I personally bootstrapped it. But I do believe that, as Jim mentioned earlier, there are loans available from whether it's the DA, from your local finance institutions that can help you do this, or you can simply fundraise and crowdsource. Or another opportunity is to find partnerships with people who do have the resources, but need a way to actually stream those resources onto the grassroots level for people who do need support. So you can easily approach companies and see if they want to help with their CSR, whether it's in your community, or you can easily do, again, as I always say this to people, it's not necessarily like this, because we did this, you have to do it too. There are several ways to get into entrepreneurship or build ventures. And as Jim said, find your niche, because you're not going to be the next Jim or the next me or the next Dr. Wannasiri. I think everyone has their own avenue into their agricultural journey or entrepreneurial journey in beginning a venture. And it's going to be uniquely scaled for your community, because you understand the culture and the nuances that happen within the communities that you work in that other people may not fully understand. So it's good to have a holistic approach, because then as working as a local would actually be able to have a more nuanced understanding of what needs to be done. So for example, the Cacao Project may not work in other regions that are close to the coastal region, but maybe you can find a different solution there that actually, it may not be cacao, but it could be another thing, whether it's coconuts or seaweed, because of course coastal regions have their own profile. So it depends on the profile, the demographic. Identifying the social issues within your area, especially in terms of food systems or agriculture. It could be within logistics, or it could be about finance. So it's just identifying those issues and then thinking of a practical solution that's culturally appropriate and applicable that you can do, and finding right partners and right people who understand the value of that, and perhaps getting them to either invest in you or getting them to support you in your mission or mentor you as you begin your journey in building a venture.
All right, thank you, Louise, for that answer. Let's go back to the halal discussion. I have two questions here for Dr. Wannasiri. Dr. Wannasiri, the first question is, can you give some insights on how to encourage halal certification or halal practices, even in predominantly non-Muslim countries? And the next question to that would be, how are young people being engaged in the halal industry?
Okay. For the first questions about influence non non-halal certified in non-Muslim country. For my example, in Thailand is also non-Muslim country, but they try to a lot of product export to another country. I would not say halal certification is not the food for Muslim, but this is the food for all. Why I say that? Because the halal certification combined with hygienic condition and the religions. If you have good practice in hygiene, so you can achieve halal certification. But they may have some more regulation to related the religion, but not too difficult. But you have to follow. If you believe in your that have the high quality, no need to afraid about halal to go for halal certification. And apart from that, if you can get the halal logo, in Thailand we have the official website that promote halal tourism. So when they appear in their website, your restaurant, their food outlet, that may have more reputation. That's why you don't want to go for halal certification. And apart from that, your price may increase a little bit. So I think maybe valuable to go for halal certification. And I forgot the second question.
Oh, the second question is, how do you encourage the youth to engage in the halal food industry? Like, how do we bring them in, especially the young ones, or how do you campaign for the halal food industry?
For about the young owner, you may be I would say, because I am lecturer, you have to have some the knowledge on about halal first. What is the halal? If you don't understand, you don't want concern about the important, because that I said, when you want to go for food outlet, the first thing that you have to do is clean. You have to sanitation. So when you want to serve the food for your customer, it's not the food, but you have to provide the quality food to encourage them to go into your restaurant. So when you want to own your business, you have to starting from the hygienic condition. If you have anything clean, if you have anything hygienic condition, halal is not difficult for you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. Okay, there is a question here for Louise and Jim. A lot of organic farmers nowadays are engaged in providing trainings in agriculture like NCII certificates, but not so much more on the production aspects of organic farming. What can you say about this? Let's start with Louise first.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think that's another thing that I mentioned earlier, is that we need to reapproach our approach to food systems. Of course, trainings are one side of it, but it's also making sure that people are able to apply that in the real life and actually mold that knowledge towards their regions and understand that. And of course, being entrepreneurial about it, I think, of course, you can learn about organic farming, but it's another thing to learn about supply and demand, business, marketing, making sure that you've secured buyers prior to planting everything, and being able to ensure that there's a demand at the time of year, and not that the supply would grow so large that the prices would shrink. So it's kind of understanding those supply chains and those dynamics that go into food production and agriculture, because people will say, okay, I've completed a course in agriculture or in organic farming, and they taught me to plant this, and this, and they'll go out and they'll plant those and realize that there's no market. So it's also a matter of making sure, first of all, that once you start doing this, you plan it really thoroughly. Second of all, that you secure a market ahead of time and approach this as a business, as an enterprise, that you have to actually make up for your losses if you farm. It's not just the social aspect or the environmental aspect. It's a lot of different factors going into it. And another thing I think is there's a lot of programs and trainings right now, but it's also a matter of, at the end of it, are you actually doing something that is relevant and currently in season? So for example, you'll go through trainings, but after a while, are you able to apply that knowledge as you go along? Are you able to maintain that and actually utilize it for something that's useful, whether it's in agriculture or organic farming or in anything else, if it's business or environment or what have you? Are you able to maintain that and retain the knowledge and apply it properly? Because, you can go through the training once, but then after a while, either you forget or it just becomes irrelevant to what you're doing specifically. So it's just a matter of making sure that it's applicable and you're making sure that it's ethically done, and also making sure you're entrepreneurial and planning about it, especially with the markets and those skills, because of course those programs exist and they're wonderful, but they're not going to help you through all the way to the end of it. And that's on you to either plan or find institutions to help support you in planning that, or buyers who will help make sure that, ensure that you're accountable to your harvest and to your business.
Should I come in right after that?
Right, over to you, Jim.
All right. Anyway, I think on the organic side, no, at least I've seen from a couple of the years I've been engaged in agri, or at least have been also interested in it, is that I've seen the uptick of like how organic became, the buzzword for years in agriculture, in Philippine agriculture specifically, especially when the law was passed and everybody was just like, oh, let's all go organic, right? And sometimes in agriculture has gone through the same challenges year after year or decade after decade, where there's a specific term, there's a specific trend or hype that would shift the whole industry towards something. But then we have to look at what is the long-term plan, right? Of course, I'm not saying that organic is bad. I'm saying that there has to be a bridge and a specific pain point that we're addressing in the market. If we're pushing a lot of production for organic products, we have to be able to bridge that with the right markets, right? And so I was thinking, it's not just the organic side of things as well, but also looking at how do we make it more demand driven, market driven, because there are some farmers that I've talked to who've gone into organic and then eventually found themselves not having markets. And I'm not saying there is no market for that. I'm saying is that we lack bridges to institutional markets for these. And so the training is good. It's good we promote the training of these certificates and skills building. But again, I go back. It has to be demand driven. It has to be market driven.
Okay, thank you for that, Jim, and sorry for that brief interruption. Next, before we close up, maybe a few minutes we can focus on this part. I'd like to talk about your drive and aspirations as youth leaders in agri. So there's this question here: how do you encourage young people today to take an interest in agriculture and food system? If some of them dwell too much on what they see on social media, especially if some of them dwell too much on what they see on social media, underestimating farmers. And this is something that Louise has already touched on, breaking the stigma. But let's start with Dr. Wannasiri first. I would like to hear her take on this, especially in the halal food industry. Dr. Wannasiri?
About to the young teenager something, because my student also young teenager, so I try to tell them that if you want to go to the capital city, you may just stay at home and you have the small land and you can farming something, and then you will see the successful, as Louise said and Mr. Jim said, not only successful, you also can make some the mistake. If you make the mistake, just learn and don't do it again. So I would say I encourage them to be the young farmer.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. Louise?
Yeah, definitely. Echoing Dr. Wannasiri, if you look into the cost of living as an entry-level job in a city with a typical, salary, it's actually higher than how much you're earning. And if you look into the cost of living in the provinces, and as she mentioned, managing your own farm or managing your own plot of land or pursuing agriculture in the first few years, you're actually earning above your cost of living, and it's making you more, you have more control of your time, you have more control of how you manage your resources, and you also have more income. So it's actually beneficial for young people, as long as, first of all, you have education training and you know how to do it properly. Once again, agriculture is not necessarily limited to the stereotype or image of what farmers are typically known to be. We are in design, in finance, in entrepreneurship, invention, innovation, technology. There are a lot of ways. There's even policy, as you can see from the discussion today, that goes into agriculture. So young people can contribute to all of those as well. And you can also go to the farm and actually rethink the way that we do agriculture. Because before agriculture can be cool, it has to be sustainable and proper. So young people can actually change the way we farm and rethink and revolutionize our food systems, because our food systems at the moment are quite problematic. So young people actually have that space for innovation and changing things, or being torchbearers of traditional knowledge as well, and integrating that to our technology and our modern day resources. So again, agriculture is not limited. Agriculture is profitable, in fact, and you just have to apply and do the right steps, really, in making it ethical and actually promoting it and changing those stereotypes that we see today.
All right, thank you, Louise. Jim, your turn.
Yeah. Well, when people ask me, well, why I'm in agriculture, I always say it's very fun, because it's there's a lot of aspects that you can go and venture into it. On my day job, I'm a director for Agritech. We're looking at we're working on IT solutions for agriculture, and it hits closely to what I very find what has a special place in my heart, which is supply chain issues, because that was my undergrad study. And supply chain issues and trying to work around IT solutions that can address that. That's one aspect that I do. The other is the policy side, where I engage with policymakers at the national, regional, global level. And because I feel like it's very crucial that there's that environment for more young people to be heard, and for that young people to be supported in what they do in agriculture. I did my stint in academia and research at UP Los Baños, and simply because I felt like that was also a way that we could hone next generation leaders in the university, and teaching them the ethics of how we can really professionalize the practice of agriculture. In extension, that's where my consultancy engagement with Dream Agritech comes in, that we work with people who want to farm but don't know how to farm, and that we help out we help out in creating farm plans and how to implement those farm plans. And my space, or the hobby of photography and videography, come into play with me setting up that business on 360ph, where I create virtual tours for farms. And all of these things, it's really just, for me, it's like a space for me to grow and explore and develop the skills that I have and enjoy it. And also, adding and helping out in nation building. I would end with an acronym that my friend from South Africa coined. And she said, Dr. Khlami said, that agriculture is perfect, right? Agriculture is policy, education, research, finance and farming or fisheries, it's extension, it's communications, it's technology or trade, right? So it's perfect. And all of us can explore the different facets of agriculture through that.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I have two last questions here for everyone. The first is, let's talk about first your challenges that you experience in your respective fields, especially in bringing in the youth. And then the next would be, what are your motivations to get over these challenges? So let's start again with Dr. Wannasiri first.
I know about everything that we do have more challenges, but if you can pass about the challenges, you will be more happy. It's like the first you in the land and then you in the top of the mountain. Why did not you don't waste time to see how they happy in the top of the mountain?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. How about your motivation for these challenges? Like, what's your mindset for this?
Yes, about the motivation is for me is maybe it looks so funny, but I prefer to take a photo. So the motivation is I would like to take a photo and I would like to pass my happy to my family. That is my motivation to do anything.
All right, thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. Louise?
Definitely. In terms of challenges, there's a lot. First of all, our cultural stigmas, the things we experience with people's ideas of agriculture. I mean, people have in the past said that they wouldn't want to believe of my venture, that I would be committed to it because I'm this young girl who looks really bubbly and probably doesn't look like she would be in the agricultural industry. And so that has been problematic. But I think that also helps me streamline what matters and the people who do believe in our vision and our goals. And on the other hand, it's also realizing that there's so many intersectionalities of all of these things, and you have to kind of, it feels like addressing them all, but really it's just doing a good work so that it positively impacts everything else, whether it's peace and security, environment, livelihoods, and development. My motivation is hopefully one day we could create an agropolis for the Philippines where agriculture can drive green recoveries for our economy. And that one day maybe farmers won't need all of these interventions and projects that I do because they'll be so well off on their own. Maybe 10, 20, 30 years down the line, our farmers would be considered one of the most respected industries, one of the most stable and secure industries. I look at Napa Valley and I look at all of those vineyards in Europe and Australia and America and see how those farmers are considered artists because of how they've manipulated nature to actually produce amazing things from the terroir and actual great quality produce. And I hope to help build that here in our country in the Philippines and create models that will actually facilitate that process to happen so that our farmers will no longer have these stereotypes and that they'll be so successful on their own. So that motivates me to keep going.
All right, thank you, Louise. Jim?
Challenges. Well, when I started off in the youth advocacy work in 2015, and my colleague Dax was even there to witness it with me. It was a high-level discussion in a country in Southeast Asia. And one of the UN agency's representatives in that meeting was telling me straight in plenary that I don't know what I'm talking about, right? And it started from there, right? It started from that challenge being that because you're a young person, you don't know anything, or because you're a young person, you don't have any space in policy dialogues such as this. And I feel like in the past 6 years, I've seen how the environment has changed. And that for me in itself is very rewarding, that institutions, that senior level policymakers now recognize that they need to include and involve young people in these discussions that affect young people, right? And so for me, it's very rewarding to see that change over the past 6 years. It's very rewarding to see how the advocacies that seem noisy on social media or in workshops have now gone and born, has now, it has now borne fruit, right? And so for me, that is in a way rewarding. And I feel like that's something that hopefully we could propagate in terms of agriculture, or at least in terms of youth engagement. What motivates me really down the line is hoping to see that the people, that the Filipinos who produce food will not go hungry. There's always been that challenge that, when I spent 1 month with farmers in the mountains, the people who work in and day out, early in the morning, going back in the afternoon, struggle with having food on their tables and their plates. And I find that an atrocity. I find that as an inequality that we need to squash out as a country. We cannot afford people who produce food to go hungry. And I hope that these families would also eventually, become profitable enough so that the next generation would say, I will go into agriculture because it provides for my family, because it can build the country. And I hope, that's the kind of vision and shared vision that we can work together. And really, what I would say lastly is that we cannot solve that issue if we don't work together with public, private, and civil society. We cannot work in silos. The academe, the industry, and the government cannot work in silos, and we have to work together to address that.
All right, thank you very much, Jim. I have one last question here. I know it's almost noon, but I can't resist not to ask this question. What do you hope the adults in the agricultural community, especially those in position in agricultural agencies, will do to encourage youth participation in agriculture? Dr. Wannasiri first again.
Yes, I hope that because of teenager, they prefer about the social media, and then I hope about the teenager will change about the agriculture to be more cool, not only present about the poor. You see, some the farmer in some country they produce about the food, but they still poor. So I hope the teenager come to develop this one and present another part of the agriculture. Maybe it's not the richest, but they can provide the quality food to another food industry. So I hope this one is starting from produce good food quality and then develop about the land or your area to be more quality product.
Thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. Louise?
Yes, for me, I hope that the older generations and all the professionals in this industry can use their skills, not just for themselves or for other countries, but to better our country as well. And hopefully develop the next generations to have the more idealistic mindset about farming. And for young people, I hope that when we do participate or get invited to these things, it's not just tokenistic participation, but a really meaningful exchange. I think that young people and older people with intergenerational collaboration now, we have to have a mutual learning experience. I have a lot to learn from my elders, and they also have something to learn from me, especially now that our world is changing at a pace that's more rapid than any of us could track. So I think it's about time that all of us recognize that there is something to learn from each other and that we can have that exchange, and it's not merely tokenistic, but it is in the interest of the Philippines.
Thank you, Louise. Jim?
I'll take a practical swipe at that question, simply saying that I hope that the senior policy people or institutional leaders would try and look at innovative ways to reduce red tape in the systems that try to engage young people, simply because there are a lot of young people that have great ideas, brilliant ideas, that down the line, because of the red tape and bureaucratic structures, feel like their enthusiasm would be snuffed out. I think it doesn't have to be a reduce it to zero, but in a way, an innovative way, so that there can be a more flexible, approachable way to scaling up youth ideas, youth innovations, adopting them without having to squeeze them out using the bureaucratic structures. That's a more pragmatic approach, maybe for institutions who are listening, but hopefully also to see that young people don't be intimidated. When you get invited to engage and be involved, of course, be respectful, be mindful, be ethical. I encourage young people, to have a huge value of ethics and morality when you go into this venture. But be mindful and respectful that you're not the only one bringing a solution to the table. You have to be able to learn how to work with other young people and with those older and above you.
All right. Thank you, Jim. And thank you, everyone. That sums up our open forum. Thank you, Dr. Wannasiri, Louise, and Jim for that very insightful discussion on the different roles and opportunities for the youth to grow and explore to contribute to the agri-food system. So I hope our session this morning has sparked inspiration to our fellow youth to take action and become drivers of change. Indeed, the agricultural community cannot work in silos. We need to work together and recognize that we can learn a lot from each other, no matter what our age may be. As mentioned earlier, this SOLVE webinar is in collaboration with the Circa Young Forces for Agricultural Innovation, or the Y4Agri. Our Facebook page is now live. Please do like, subscribe, and share with your network. Now we are announcing the winners of our mini contest earlier for the reacts and shares on the Circa Y4Agri Facebook page. Congratulations to Rafael Artates, Loris Bell Ostil, Kyle Timothy Quejadas, Clarissa Grace Gibani Vergara. So winners of our mini contest this morning will be contacted directly regarding your Circa merchandise, and please wait for our representative to reach out to you. Before we close this webinar, may I request our speakers for some key takeaway message. Just a quick one, because I know we're running over time. Dr. Wannasiri,
teenager, you are the power of all the country. So just do it.
Thank you, Dr. Wannasiri. Louise?
I think youth now need to recognize that they bear a large responsibility in making sure that our country, our industries are successful. And so it's time to actually take action and put all of our ideas and ambitions into action in the real world. So please do so.
Thank you, Louise. And finally, Jim?
I'll quote my friend from the Food System Summit, Marie Claire from Switzerland. And she has this quote. She says, "Nothing about youth without youth." And so I think that's very crucial, that we can't talk about youth if there are no young people in the room and if there are no young people driving the car. So hopefully we can do that together with institutions like Circa and also with government and industry and academia. Thank you.
Okay, those are really inspiring. Sorry, I made you keep it brief. Those are inspiring takeaways. Thank you to our speakers. Meanwhile, we would also like to hear some insights from our audience. So we are giving you the chance to share with us your thoughts through the Y4 Agri Facebook page. So shown on your screen is the question. Please head to that page again and comment your own answer to the post with the question, how can young people contribute to transforming the agri-food system? At least 2 commenters with the most meaningful answers will also receive Circa merchandise. We will announce them by tomorrow, so please take your time in reflecting your own takeaways from the webinar and tell us your answer to the question. Please continue to follow the Circa Facebook page and the Y4 Agri Facebook page. So that's 2 Circa-related Facebook pages for more news and announcements on our youth initiatives. Our 2021 Youth Co-Video Contest will also be announced in the coming days on our online channels. So watch out for the details on the theme and how to join the contest. On behalf of Circa, led by our director, Dr. Glenn Gregorio, we would like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Wannasiri, Louise, and Jim for taking the time to join us today. It has been a pleasure to have you with us this morning. That ends our webinar, but before we close, please let us know what you think about this session by following the link to a quick feedback form shown on your screen. The same link will direct you to the request form for the e-certificate, and your feedback will help us improve our online learning events. Please note that we will only accommodate requests for e-certificates within 24 hours after the end of this webinar. Kindly wait for your e-certificate to be issued at least within a month, as you receive a lot of requests for e-certificates. Thank you for your understanding and patience. Please join us again for our next online conversation on September 8, 2021 at 10 o'clock in the morning. That's a Wednesday. We have invited speakers who will talk public information sufficiency on genome-edited crops. So please don't miss it. Let us help one another get through this COVID-19 pandemic. We hope that as we go along, we will be able to share and create a community of better, bigger, and smarter farmers and farming communities. Once again, this is Jean Labios of Circa. Have a good day, stay healthy, stay safe, and goodbye, everyone.